My Lord and my God, I adore you and I love you. And I believe you are truly present, body, blood, soul, and divinity, in the most holy Eucharist. The role of the Blessed Virgin Mary is to lead us to Jesus in the Eucharist. And that's exactly what she's doing this evening. She is praying with us directly to her Son, encouraging us to open our hearts to the only one who can bring us healing, strength, forgiveness, and peace. This year, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Our Lady's 6 apparitions in Fatima, Portugal. In her first apparition on May 13, 1917, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to 3 shepherd children, 10-year-old Lucia, 8-year-old Francisco, and 7-year-old Jacinta. This is how Lucia described Our Lady. She was more brilliant than the sun and radiated light more clear and intense than a crystal glass filled with sparkling water when the rays of the burning sun shine through it. In Our Lady's hands were beads of a rosary, which shone like stars, with the crucifix the most radiant of all. What did Our Lady say to these 3 little children? She told them to pray the rosary daily. Pray the rosary every day for world peace. Why was this so important? Because World War I had been going on for 3 years, and more than 1 million men had already been killed. She told the children if they prayed the rosary every day, that terrible war would come to a quick end. Today, this evening, the Virgin Mary is asking you and me to pray the rosary every day so that peaceful relations will be restored in the Middle East, in North Korea, and other troubled spots throughout the world. But she is also inviting each family to become a family of peace, joy, and reconciliation. If your family is going through hardships and trials, then make a commitment today to pray the daily family rosary. Kneel down as a family each night in your living rooms and contemplate the life of Jesus through the eyes of Mary. Let each Hail Mary prayed with devotion draw you one step closer to God. The Virgin Mary promised to St. Dominic and Blessed Alan, quote, "The rosary shall be a powerful armor against hell. It will cause virtue and good works to flourish. It will obtain for souls the abundant mercy of God. And the soul which recommends itself to the Virgin Mary by the recitation of the rosary shall not perish." St. John Paul the Great grew up in his family praying the rosary. As a teenager and young adult during World War II, he was part of a living rosary group. He experienced from the inside the powerful protection of the Virgin Mary against the terrorizing Nazi regime, which daily threatened his life. And later, as a young priest, under a communist government, he went on canoeing and camping trips with the university students in forests and mountains where he would celebrate Mass and pray the rosary with them. He wore ordinary clothes and told the students to call him uncle so as not to arouse the suspicions of the communist secret police. In this setting, the young people could talk to him about whatever was on their minds. He taught them the dignity of the human person and the beauty of married love. When he was Pope, John Paul II continued to pray the rosary every day, entrusting his life and work to Jesus through the loving hands of Mary. On May 13, 1981, Mehmet Ali Agha fired 2 bullets from close range into the body of Pope John Paul II. The Pope slumped to the floor of the Pope-mobile, and as he was being rushed to Gemelli Hospital, he could be heard saying the word Madonna, Madonna. He was calling on the Blessed Virgin Mary to protect him. Miraculously, he survived that 5-hour emergency operation, after which the surgeon stated that one of the bullets had missed an artery by a fraction of an inch. If that artery had been hit, the Pope would have died instantly. John Paul II liked to say, one hand fired the bullet and another guided it. He saw the connection between May 13, 1981 and May 13, 1917, the date of the first apparition of Our Lady of Fatima. So 1 year later, on May 13, 1982, he went to Fatima to thank Our Lady, and he placed the bullet that had passed through his body in the crown of the Virgin. Just 2 months ago, on May 13th, Pope Francis canonized the 2 youngest Fatima shepherds, Francisco and Jacinta. Francisco was 10 and Jacinta was only 9 when she died. How did they become saints? They obeyed the Virgin. They prayed the rosary every day for world peace. They offered their daily sacrifices in their sufferings, which were many because they died of very serious diseases. They offered it for the conversion of sinners. And in this way, at such a tender age, they lived a life of heroic virtue. You saw our beautiful children today gathered around the Virgin Mary. She's calling each one of them to be a saint, just like Saint Francisco, just like Saint Jacinta. And the Virgin Mary is calling each one of us to be a saint today. And today is a great evening of grace. And you can ask the Virgin Mary to pray with you directly to Jesus for whatever you need. The Virgin Mary appeared to the 3 shepherd children a total of 6 times. In advance of her last apparition on October 13th, she told them that on that day, God would work a miracle so that the whole world would know that she was truly appearing to these 3 shepherds and that what she was saying was true. When the day arrived, more than 70,000 people gathered in that little field in Fatima, including reporters from newspapers all over Europe. And on that day, it was a torrential downpour of rain. And the scoffers were looking at the children saying, there isn't going to be any virgin appearing to those little kids today. But suddenly the children saw a flash of light, and the Virgin Mary appeared to them. She told them the following: I want to tell you that a chapel is to be built here in my honor. I am the Lady of the Rosary. Continue to pray the Rosary every day. The war is going to end, and the soldiers will soon return to their homes. And then that war did end shortly thereafter. But what happened next is miraculous, as described by one of the women who was there, an eyewitness. Quote, suddenly the rain ceased, the clouds separated, and I saw a large sun, brighter than the sun. Yet I could look at it without hurting my eyes. Then the sun started spinning and shooting streams of light, shooting all colors of the rainbow across the sky. At the time, it started getting bigger and bigger in the sky, as though it was heading directly for all of us, falling to the earth. Everyone was frightened. We all thought the world was ending. Everyone threw themselves on their knees and began praying the act of contrition. Suddenly, the sun stopped spinning and returned to its place in the sky. Everyone started shouting, miracle! This is a miracle! And just then they noticed that both the ground and their clothes were bone dry. The next day, the front page headlines of newspapers all over Europe read, Miracle of the Sun, Virgin Mary appears in Fatima. This evening, Our Lady of Fatima and St. John Paul II are inviting you and me to talk to Jesus about our own lives as we pray the Global Living Rosary. Jesus has many gifts and blessings to give us. He knows how to heal broken marriages and to restore hope to those facing overwhelming situations. He desires to fill our hearts with peace as we ask Mother Mary to pray with us directly to him. In closing, I would like to share a story about Pope Francis when he was a 48-year-old priest. One evening, he went to recite the Rosary, which was being led by Pope John Paul II. He was deeply moved by the Holy Father's piety and devotion and began to imagine the Holy Father as a young priest, as a seminarian, as a child, in the same position which he knelt at that moment, reciting the Ave Maria, one after another. The Pope's witness struck him, which he summed up in these words, quote, "I felt that this man, chosen to lead the church, was following a path up to his mother in the sky, a path set out from his childhood, and I became aware of the density of the words of Our Lady of Guadalupe to St. Juan Diego. 'Do not be afraid. Am I not your mother?' I understood the presence of Mary in the life of the Pope, and from that time on, I recite the 15 mysteries of the Rosary every day."